Okay, so this is the entrance. There are two doors. You see that door there and then this here. So we're not doing anything in that space, but when they come in through here, I think we'll have the backdrop right here for pictures. And then she'll have a welcome table that she'll set up on this side. Then you come in, this is the main space here. It'll have tables and chairs kind of spread around, but I'm supposed to do drapes from here that hang down from the top. So that is the issue. Not really an issue, but I have to sort out how I'm gonna hang them from the top. So then we're just bringing tablecloths and some chairs. So we're using ivory tablecloths, some chairs. I think here they're just setting up more stuff, so I came to just finalize all that, and I took some measurements upstairs. So that's the plan. This is the before, and we'll set up after.
Welcome to Sodo Creations, where we make your imagination a reality. Now that you have seen the venue, let us start working on prepping everything for this event. I recorded that video a few weeks ago when I went to finalize the design plan, but today I am here early to prep all the balloons, load up the truck so we can take it to that event center. So I'm inflating balloons in 3 colors. We have the empowerment. I keep wanting to say empowerment. We have the meadow green by Tuftex. Then we have a pink by Qualitex, and we have white by Tuftex. Now white by Tuftex and Qualitex are pretty much the same thing. They're interchangeable, but I just had all the bags for Tuftex, so I decided to go with those. Initially, I inflate with both 16 inches and 11 inches, but then I decide to change things around and just inflate with the 11 inches because you'll see why later. I have to explain that in person so you can really understand. I don't want it to be too bulky at the top of the design. These balloons are for the photo backdrop, and I don't want it to look as though the balloons are gonna swallow my backdrop. I still want my balloon to stand out. So that's why I'm not inflating the big balloons. There is a time and a place for a lot of the 17-inch balloons, and this is not the time. So you've seen me in the past, if you've been following my channel, inflate several balloons, but this time around I'm not. Here I'm just measuring to make sure that I have the same length of garland.
So that's actually about 8 feet. These are the runners that we're using, and you can see on camera they're a little more lime green than our pastel over here. I'm hoping that the color tones down once we open it up and it's not folded, but this is the color, that's the color difference. These are going at the entrance for pictures, but we're also gonna have these balloons just floating down around the room. Not a lot, but a few. So I think it'll all tie together when everything is done. But I don't have the drapes now with me, the ones that are gonna hang down. I can't remember if they're similar to this or this. Either way, it should all tie in. They're in the car already. So I'm going to make the fillers for these. I decided not to use, I'm gonna turn you around a little bit so you can see, because I started out adding the bigger balloons, the 17 inches. Then I changed my mind, because when you mix different colors like this, you end up with clusters. You can see where there's that row of white right there, 3, and you have a cluster. It's hard to point with, you have this cluster here of pink, and then you have this cluster or this row of pink here. So my plan is I'm going to inflate the 17-inch balloons individually, and once I attach this, then I'll put the 17 inches in the areas that are have the cluster. So like for this pink, I'll put like a white or a green right here in the middle, and then same thing. So I'm gonna inflate my 5-inch filler balloons, and then I'll tie those with 260 Qs to these bigger 17 inches. That's what I'll use to mark the point. So like on this white one also right there, then I'll add maybe a pink right there so that it mixes everything up and there are no clumps of different colors. So I'm gonna go get some 260 Q, and then I'll inflate those and create the fillers.
So with our 260Q, eventually you see me cut them, but right now I'm inflating the 17-inch balloons that I'm going to use as accents. When you inflate the single balloons, you still want them rounded, so I'm still compressing how I did with the garland and making it round. I don't need too many of those, so I only did one in each color. And now it's time for me to inflate my filler balloons. I'm inflating the 5-inch balloons pairs first. I only want to use 3 colors here because I find that when I do a mixture of colors instead of a color block, I like representing each color instead of having an odd color where there are 2, then you have a few. Since I'm only using 3, if I was using 4 colors, then I would put 4 colors in the filler balloon, but since we're only using 3, I'm only putting 3. First, I inflate the meadow green and the white, and then I go ahead and add the pink. You want to just estimate on the size, make sure they're close enough. Otherwise, it looks a little bit odd when you put it on your backdrop. Now, these are our 260Q. We're going to cut them in half and use one end on one of the filler balloons and the other end to attach our cluster. And for the rest of the filler balloons in the 5 inches, we're going to just put rubber bands as we always do to put them on the backdrop when we get to the venue. So you can see where I'm tying one end on the bigger balloon and the other end on one of the filler clusters. That is how we're going to make sure we attach those big balloons in the right place, and at the same time killing 2 birds with 1 stone, filling up the balloon. Now I'm working on inflating all the balloons that are going to float around the hall. When she asked about this design, I never did it before, but the one thing that came to mind for me was fishing line. The only way the balloons are going to look as though they're floating across the room is by using fishing line. So what I did at the venue, which I forgot to record, is just tie the fishing line to the area where I'm gonna start floating, then leave a gap in between each balloon and just keep tying the fishing line while alternating colors. I'll show you a video of how it's already tied later on, but I didn't show the technique I use. I'm just inflating the balloons in different sizes so that it gives a little bit of a contrast and they're not all the same when we get to the venue. So that's what I'm doing here. I have to inflate all the colors and just tie them, and then when we get to the venue, it's easy for me to just use the fishing line to tie. I can't pre-tie them because the fishing line they'll get all tangled up in the bag, and I don't want to deal with that. So my first bag to take, I put the 5-inch filler balloons at the bottom because that's what we used last. Then I put my 2 clusters that I'll just connect when we get to the venue, and our second bag is going to have all these floating balloons that we're gonna carry.
Most things loaded, a few chairs. So how many chairs do we have? Because we have to subtract the rest. Say hi to the camera. Representing Sodo Creations. If I need to change my shirt that says Event Center Decor Rentals instead of event. But yeah, loving it.
We are now at the venue. I am putting my uprights up. I'm starting with the backdrop while everyone else is pulling the rest of the items from the car and setting up the tables and chairs. So trying to get this done as fast as I can because the Oklahoma History Center is still open and they have people still coming in, but they're letting us set up while all that is going on. So I'm putting my crossbar on the backdrop, so turning the backdrop with the back facing upwards and just using zip ties to secure the crossbar in place. You want to do this, it's a lot easier than trying to put the backdrop while the crossbar is up. So this is a better way. Sometimes you can lift it up by yourself. With the shimmer walls, it's easier to have help or do half of it and then connect the other pieces, but I'm able to lift this one okay. So I put all my zip ties throughout. I put quite a bit just so it stays in place. This lady was walking straight ahead. I guess didn't expect anything. So I'm rushing to get this done as fast as I can so that no one trips on this backdrop. So here I am trying to figure out how to hook that on, and it's easier from the back because of course I can see a lot better. I'm not worried about the bottom right now because I need it to be as low as possible so that I can put the balloons on the backdrop. So I'm putting my valance hangers to connect my second crossbar. The one thing I would say for this backdrop is I probably should have hung my hedge wall a little lower or right below the crossbar, because you can see from the top there it's visible, and the front is gonna have drapes. So I had a little bit of room to have the backdrop a little higher, but that's okay. It's a lot more secure when the crossbar is actually on top, or the crossbar is on top of the hedge wall. Now I'm going to put 6 panels of my 4-way stretch white fabric on this front crossbar. Richard is leaving. He's about to go pick up the other chairs. I showed you the truck earlier. We had mostly the balloons and all our other supplies, but we have about 160 chairs that we had to bring, the gold Chavari chairs that the customer rented from us. So he's going to pick up the rest while we finish setting up everything else. Now back to the drapes. We're making sure that all of these are evenly spaced out. I can't emphasize this enough when I'm talking about drapes, but you want to make sure it's even. Otherwise, your backdrop will not look good. I'm tying 260Q balloons right now at 3 points so I can attach these balloons that we already inflated. Remember, I did 2 pieces so that it would be easier to carry to the venue. I'm just connecting those 2 pieces right now, and that is our garland, or the base of our garland. We're going to attach it. Pardon all the people who keep coming through. I tried to cut as many of the people blocking your view as much as I could just so you could see this design, but I couldn't fully do it because I don't want you to also miss out on any part of the tutorial. Now I'm looking at where to place those big balloons with the filler clusters we designed, and that looked like a good spot for this one. Of course, you can always rearrange and place them in different areas, and you see me adjust them every now and then. It's just a twist around. We're again putting these with our 260Q balloon, so it's easy. You just kind of wrap it around the balloon right where you're wanting it placed. So you find one balloon and wrap it around, and pretty much you know it's gonna be on either side of that same balloon. Now with the rubber bands already on the filler clusters, we are connecting the filler balloons. If you see right in the middle of that backdrop, when you're putting these filler balloons, make sure that the same colors are not touching the bigger balloons. I'm saying that because if you look at that middle balloon, the green is pointing upwards and it's in between the bigger pink and white, and the white is opposite the bigger white, so it's not touching. This helps give your design a little bit of a contrast so that you're actually noticing the filler balloons and they're not blending in with the other bigger balloons. Hopefully that makes sense. I raised the backdrop to the height of the hedge wall, so the hedge wall is barely touching the floor, and now I'm designing my drape. So I'm just folding that fabric in my fingers. I'm not creating large swoops like you would normally see me do on other designs, because this is the style we're going for, a little bit of a thinner, smaller backdrop, so the drapes are also a little thinner. I want each drape to be as even as the ones on the outside, so I'm really just folding everything in my hand. At the front here, we're gonna do a bit of a crisscross pattern, but I'm tying that on the base. Now this is an essential part of your draping. To finish off your drapes, you always want to fold that fabric, kind of create a puddle so that it looks like your fabric is just flowing all the way down to the floor. You're not creating a lump, you're creating a puddle. With that long drape, my drapes are pretty long, but this is only about 8 feet tall, so I'm just folding that in, making sure that my pleats stay intact. Now I'm adding this silver. Initially I had gold because I knew they wanted gold for their design, but across from me they were designing their table and they put gold accents, so I figured if it's the entrance, we're going to do the same. Moving on to our biggest thing that made me so nervous for this design is these drapes. So the drapes are 30 feet tall, which is long and intimidating, but I bought all these fabrics as a bolt, so they didn't cut them, so I had to fold the end so that it would fit on my crossbars, making sure that that gold is facing down because I want it to face the entrance, and the back of the drape will face the window side of the hall. I have 2 crossbars on the floor. The other option I thought about was to use PVC pipes, and I ended up not having time for that, so I used my crossbars, and I'm making sure here nobody is under there before I tuck in the first fabric to drop down. So I have a little helper here who is determined to help. I don't know if you will notice at some point, but she ends up dropping one of the fabrics without me knowing. Right here I hurt my wrist. The weight hit my wrist, and a week later it's still hurting. So the other thing I had to figure out with this design is trying to get it to go in between those upright silver metal pieces that are holding that glass in place. But I'll show you a closer up of how I end up designing this. Here I thought I could just tuck the fabric in, but it was too bulky, so I started from the end, which is the bottom, and then tucked everything in. You'll see the disaster that happens after we drop all these pieces of fabric here shortly. So now she is also tucking hers in. You can see it right there, and I didn't notice till her mom down there pointed that out, and I said, oh no, that's not what we want to do, because I didn't want that crossbar to hit that glass and I end up in trouble because I don't have her crossbar secure. So now I have to pause my side and try to secure that before we continue. So this is what it looks like. Finally, I made sure the drapes were spaced out, and even we have that gap in the middle, and you can see where there's a little bit of a raised area right there. So that's what is holding my weights in place from pushing back. So I'm putting it right there so that it doesn't pull against that glass, and then you can kind of see where the drapes fall. The issue with all of this now as we get out of the elevator is that the drapes do not touch the floor. This was an absolute disaster because I'll fix it later, but I say disaster because it said that they were 10 feet both fabrics. And when I bought them, I figured it would touch the floor because we measured the height of this hall, but it didn't work. But you'll see me fix that. Before that, let me show you the balloons because I didn't have time to record those. So I want you to see what I did. This is me hanging the balloons in one spot and just
quite
releasing
a bit of space there. I'm trying to figure out if that's enough or if I need to make more. It's 8 per table.
So once I had all those balloons kind of strung, we found a way to just go around that top part of the whole building and get it to tie across the other end. That was also a chore, but we got it done. Kind of brainstorming, I swear, some critical thinking there. See, there's just one fabric that touches the floor. This was so irritating to me because now I had to figure out that when I drape, you can see our backdrop there, when I drape the fabric, what do I do with the bottom? Because we cannot have it just suspended in the air. So I draped the first part. I forgot to record how I did that, and Matt is just helping me secure everything in place. We're using fishing line to tie it around the pole once it's draped so that it doesn't fall back, and we're using a piece of fishing line from the top all the way down to kind of tug it up so that it doesn't pull too much on the fishing line that's around the column and cause it to break. So now I'm using a ladder. This is pretty tall. These columns are 30 feet tall. So now I'm trying to drape the opposite side. So I'm just putting, they wanted this sheer fabric just like loose. One thing I think I would have changed with this design is probably add a lot more of this fabric so that it fills it up really well. But in a way, with the light hitting it from outside, it also gives it that nice airy look. So kind of tell me in the comments what you prefer. I forgot to tell you guys that if you're watching for the first time or you're not yet subscribed to the channel, if you consider clicking that subscribe button, I really appreciate your support in that. I try to post videos once a week and they're all related to decor. I have an event center I just opened. I'm planning a whole series on that to show you how we did a complete remodel and got that event center going with each area. I just have a few more things to finish off before I completely post that, because I want you to see the transformation of each space. But again, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of the videos. The only solution was for Richard to go back to the event center and bring my gold fabric. I had some gold fabric. I don't have any more of the green or the pink. So I have the gold. I'm just gonna create those shoulder pads that you see me normally create, or the pole covers, and put that around where I tied, so it'll look like the gold continues on down. You'll see that in just a second. That was the only way I could find to fix that, because it was just irritating me that the drapes were not touching the floor. So I'm using the pipe cleaner to secure it. We actually tied those areas where we tied each side. We used our ties, those shimmer ties, and I just put this over it because we already had the fishing line wrapped around that, so there was no way to take it off. Do you notice the floating balloons? Please tell me what you think about those. I think they were a good touch to the design. We were kind of pressed on time, but personally I would have added a couple more, kind of going a little higher, but the customer just wanted 2 strings, and normally if I wasn't pressed for time I would have added a couple more. I think Richard ended up hanging 2 more just coming down on the design, so you see that kind of on the sides, both sides of the design. Now make sure you're watching and waiting for that final look. I have a couple of pictures here coming up, and I'm waiting on formal pictures so you can kind of see what everything looks like right here. Thank you so much for watching. Again, don't forget to subscribe and comment below what you think of all these firsts of our design. So I love it because it never gets old with decor, always something new. Thank you for watching.